There's a quiet kind of power that most people never notice. It doesn't demand applause or attention. It isn't loud or forceful. It is the power of presence restrained, of influence measured, of silence chosen deliberately. Those who understand it move differently through the world. They don't shout to be heard. Instead, their actions, their choices, and even their absence speak for them. Stoicism teaches that mastery over the inner life is the greatest freedom we can claim, and in that mastery lies the ability to shape not only your own path, but also how the world perceives you. The people who cultivate this kind of influence understand a simple truth. The less they react to the noise around them, the more clearly they see, and the more weight their words carry. Life feels steadier, their decisions sharper, their presence more intentional. There is a stillness in this approach, a discipline that cultivates perspective and resilience. It is not about hiding or avoiding. It is about aligning with what truly matters, observing carefully, and responding from wisdom rather than impulse. True influence is rarely born from constant action or endless explanation. It grows from patience, reflection, and the ability to move deliberately through each moment. Those who step back intentionally discover the depth in each interaction, the power in each pause, and the authority that comes from self-mastery. In this quiet space, clarity emerges, respect is earned, and the world begins to take notice. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed presence to carry meaning. Most people fear fading from view because they mistake being seen for being significant. There's constant pressure to post, speak, and show yourself, as if every moment out of sight diminishes your value. Yet influence rarely comes from constant exposure. Minds, ours and those of others, respond to scarcity, to pauses, to what is not immediately available. A voice repeated endlessly loses resonance. A figure always on display becomes part of the background. Activity is not impact, visibility is not value. Those who master the subtle art of influence step back deliberately, not from fear, but from insight. Silence becomes a tool. It amplifies what follows. It creates a presence that commands attention without demanding it. Presence is measured not by frequency, but by the weight of each appearance. When someone is always visible, their words and actions lose impact. Observers habituate. What was once striking becomes ordinary. Those who understand this tension between expectation and presence practice restraint. They allow curiosity and anticipation to grow. Silence is not emptiness. It is intentional space that shapes perception. Each pause becomes a moment to reflect, to strategize, to prepare a meaningful contribution. In a noisy world, stepping back creates a rhythm that naturally draws attention. Respect grows, intrigue follows, and absence itself communicates thoughtfulness and control. Stepping back requires a level of self-mastery most people never practice. Disappearing isn't just a strategy, it is a test of whether you can sit with yourself without needing validation. Most are tethered to feedback, constantly checking if someone responded, noticed, or approved. Choosing to step away from that loop entirely is uncomfortable. No reassurance, no immediate feedback, just space. But that discomfort is where true power emerges. From a Stoic perspective, it is mastery over external dependence. You are no longer reacting to the world's attention. You decide when it deserves yours. Silence, measured absence, and selective engagement allow you to observe patterns, understand people more deeply, and act with precision. Less noise, more impact. Emotional control emerges naturally when you stop reacting to every stimulus and instead observe deliberately, respond thoughtfully, and engage only when necessary. Each word, each gesture, each appearance becomes meaningful because it is deliberate rather than impulsive. The greatest masters of influence are often misunderstood. Their silence is mistaken for distance. Their absence is seen as disengagement. But in truth, they are choosing moments carefully, conserving energy, focus, and attention. Predictability dulls influence. Measured unpredictability amplifies it. Those who control their presence understand that power often lies not in what is shown, but in what is withheld. By detaching from the need to be constantly recognized, they become harder to anticipate, more grounded, and less influenced by external noise. Ego, when unrestrained, makes people reactive and predictable, but detachment from recognition brings freedom. Presence becomes intentional, authority emerges organically, and influence grows through rhythm and restraint rather than constant assertion. Stepping back does not diminish power. It sharpens it, making each return more significant, each word more impactful, and each action more memorable. Now, applying this intentionally transforms how the world responds. You speak less. You stop explaining everything. You allow space between actions. At first it feels strange, even uncomfortable, but slowly everything changes. People listen more closely when you do speak. They notice when you appear. Your presence sharpens, becomes defined, and carries weight. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped overextending it. Influence shifts from chasing attention to controlling it. Strategic absence, deliberate silence, and intentional timing create a psychological presence that commands curiosity, respect, and engagement. Observation deepens, interactions carry more meaning, and authority emerges naturally. The rhythm of measured presence becomes your tool, shaping perception without force, guiding attention without demand, and demonstrating mastery in subtle, profound ways. If you value clarity, insight, and living with intention, consider taking the next step by subscribing. Subscribing here is more than a click. It is a commitment to explore Stoic principles, to reflect on your own actions, and to engage with ideas that guide thoughtful, deliberate living. It is choosing to surround yourself with perspectives that sharpen understanding, deepen presence, and help cultivate a life aligned with reason and intentionality. Over time, calibrated absence generates a subtle psychological advantage. Observers begin to value moments of presence, noticing every contribution, listening closely, and attaching significance to every action. The paradox is clear. Stepping back does not diminish influence, it enhances it. Those who master this balance integrate reflection with action, silence with speech, and absence with presence. Significance is cultivated not through ceaseless activity, but through the intentional orchestration of presence, ensuring each contribution is impactful, each interaction meaningful, and each word remembered. The fear of disappearing is a misunderstanding of influence and significance. Presence alone rarely produces impact. It is the interplay of presence and absence, attention and restraint that shapes authority. Those who understand this principle regulate engagement, create meaningful space, and elevate every action through thoughtful withdrawal. Silence and absence are not weakness. They are the art of strategic mastery. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the things you think about determine the quality of your mind, and stepping back intentionally cultivates clarity, authority, and influence. Each pause becomes purposeful, each absence meaningful, and every return demonstrates insight, control, and enduring presence. Disappearing from the constant hum of attention requires more than strategy. It demands self-mastery. Most people are tethered to validation, constantly checking, responding, reacting to every ping, every notification, every sign that someone is watching, noticing, or judging. There is a subtle terror in stepping away from that loop, in allowing silence and absence to exist without explanation or reassurance. Yet within that discomfort lies power. To sit with oneself without the need for approval is to confront the mind as it truly is, to observe impulses without immediately gratifying them, and to recognize the difference between compulsion and choice. In doing so, the individual begins to cultivate a presence that is internally generated, not dependent on the reflections of others. A state few ever achieve, but one that carries profound influence. Consider how often we shape our behavior for the sake of an imagined audience. Every post, every comment, Every gesture is filtered through the lens of how it will be perceived. It becomes a subtle performance, dictated not by authentic intent, but by anticipated reaction. The desire for external validation is a quiet chain, binding attention and energy to the perceptions of others. By choosing to step back, even briefly, this chain is broken. The absence becomes a conscious act of reclaiming autonomy. One begins to understand that influence is not a function of constant demonstration, but of selective presence, a principle that challenges our ingrained assumptions about connection, relevance, and recognition. The individual who can endure the unease of being unseen gains a clarity and freedom that is inaccessible to those still reacting to every external prompt. The discomfort of absence is amplified by the relentless feedback loop our modern world creates. Notifications, likes, and messages offer fleeting gratification, a temporary affirmation of presence, but they also condition the mind to seek approval continuously. Each step away from this loop is a deliberate act of resistance, a test of whether one can find equilibrium in self-reflection rather than external applause. From a psychological perspective, this fosters resilience and emotional independence. The mind learns to tolerate ambiguity, to observe without immediate judgment, and to value substance over performance. Strategic withdrawal does not signify weakness. It demonstrates discipline, patience, and the capacity to endure what others instinctively flee, the silence of one's own company without distraction or reassurance. Stoicism provides a framework for understanding why this self-imposed distance is transformative. The Stoics teach that it is not events that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. Epictetus reminds us that it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And in stepping away from the endless cycle of attention, one exercises precisely this principle. The reactions of others, the measure of likes, comments, or acknowledgements, are external and outside true control. What can be mastered is one's own response, one's own presence, one's own attention. By disengaging from the compulsion to be constantly recognized, a person becomes the author of their own focus, the curator of their own influence, and the guardian of their inner tranquility. Absence is a deliberate assertion of this autonomy, an embodiment of the principle that the mind governs the self, not external circumstances. There is also a subtle psychological advantage to learning how to endure absence. In a world of ceaseless distraction, the ability to remain steady without continuous reinforcement is rare. Others are drawn to those who are not easily swayed by the constant tides of approval or attention. The mind, attuned to scarcity and unpredictability, assigns weight to moments of deliberate engagement. By contrast, those who overextend their presence dilute their influence. Their words become expected, their actions less notable, and their presence loses its psychological impact. To master the discipline of withdrawal is to understand timing, to recognize that absence amplifies attention, and to wield one's presence with conscious intention rather than reactive habit. This mastery over timing, perception, and personal restraint separates those who command influence from those who merely occupy space. The process is not devoid of introspection. Sitting with oneself without distraction forces reflection on values, priorities, and the mechanisms of desire. The urge for recognition is not inherently flawed, but it becomes a limitation when it dominates behavior. By tolerating discomfort, by resisting the constant pull of validation, a person begins to cultivate autonomy and emotional clarity. One learns that influence is not granted by constant visibility, but accrued through intention, restraint, and the strategic orchestration of presence. The psychological tension generated by absence transforms attention from a passive observation into an active engagement, making each appearance more significant and each interaction more impactful. Patience becomes an instrument of influence, and silence, when wielded intentionally, communicates strength. Modern life makes this discipline difficult precisely because the need for constant affirmation is reinforced at every turn. We are conditioned to equate interaction with significance, response with relevance, and visibility with success. The choice to disengage, to step away from these ingrained patterns, is therefore an act of courage as well as strategy. It requires an understanding of human nature, an awareness of one's impulses, and the willingness to accept temporary discomfort for long-term gain. It is in these periods of deliberate absence that one develops a refined sense of agency, a capacity to act with purpose rather than compulsion, and a clarity of thought that the constant noise of engagement cannot provide. The individual who endures the temporary unease of invisibility discovers the depth of their own autonomy and the subtle strength of self-generated presence. The discomfort of absence also strengthens resilience. In moments without reassurance, the mind learns to tolerate uncertainty, to remain steady in the face of ambiguity, and to retain focus on what truly matters. Emotional stability, once cultivated in solitude, becomes a source of quiet power in social and professional contexts. Others notice this composure, even subconsciously, and respect emerges naturally. By mastering the balance between presence and absence, the individual develops a rhythm of engagement that maximizes influence while conserving energy and attention. This rhythm, learned through patience and self-discipline, exemplifies the Stoic principle that one's power derives from internal mastery rather than external recognition. Ultimately, stepping away from the loop of constant attention is a deliberate cultivation of autonomy, insight, and influence. It tests the capacity to remain grounded, to observe without immediate reaction, and to act from wisdom rather than impulse. Absence becomes a mirror reflecting both inner strength and external perception. Those who endure the unease of invisibility discover that influence is not a function of continuous display, but the strategic interplay between presence, restraint, and timing. Through this mastery, one is no longer governed by the reactions of others, but commands attention and respect by the deliberate, thoughtful orchestration of self. The test of absence is, paradoxically, the path to lasting presence and authority. Stepping back creates a quiet kind of tension that most people fail to notice, but it is one of the most powerful forces in shaping perception. Absence is not emptiness. It is a canvas on which others paint their assumptions, interpretations, and speculations. When you remove yourself, even briefly, you introduce a space that people feel compelled to fill. The uncertainty that emerges draws attention, provokes curiosity, and subtly shifts control from the observer to the one who has chosen to step away. Every minute you are unseen becomes a moment in which others imagine possibilities, often assigning depth and significance that surpass what constant visibility could ever achieve. This is not about creating illusions or playing games. It is about understanding the natural human tendency to seek patterns and meaning, and positioning oneself deliberately within that psychological dynamic. The power of absence lies in its ability to reveal the dependency others have on your presence. People are uncomfortable with gaps because they are wired to crave completeness, continuity, and predictability. When you are consistently available, your presence is expected, and people process it almost unconsciously, without heightened awareness. But when you withdraw, the rhythm is disrupted, and attention sharpens. They notice details they previously ignored, interpret subtleties with greater care, and weigh every interaction more thoughtfully. In a way, stepping back is like introducing a subtle suspense into the narrative of your life. Others become participants in your story without realizing it, constructing significance and assigning value to the moments you choose to reappear. The impact of your actions becomes amplified precisely because of the pause that preceded them. Stepping back also forces introspection and reflection, which are essential for developing presence and influence. When you are constantly performing or interacting, your attention is scattered, tethered to external signals and immediate responses, The absence creates a pause, a moment to examine not just what others perceive, but how you perceive yourself and your role in the dynamic. Carl Jung observed that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. The act of retreating allows for this inward gaze. It is in the quiet, unobserved moments that clarity emerges, priorities crystallize, and intentions align with values rather than reaction. This self-knowledge enhances every subsequent interaction, making presence more intentional and impact more enduring. Uncertainty in the minds of others is a powerful instrument, not because it confuses them, but because it compels their engagement. When people speculate about your absence, they are mentally and emotionally invested, turning attention into anticipation. They assign weight to your presence and meaning to your actions in ways that are far more impactful than what could be achieved through constant explanation. The unpredictability does not imply chaos, it implies careful calibration. You are no longer at the mercy of others' expectations, but rather guiding perception through subtle absence and presence. Influence becomes less about what is said or shown, and more about the timing, context, and rhythm with which it is revealed. Strategic withdrawal thus reshapes the narrative around you, granting leverage to those who wield it deliberately. Predictability diminishes engagement. When others can anticipate your behavior, your influence becomes mechanical, devoid of tension or intrigue. By contrast, controlled absence injects a sense of vitality and depth into interactions. People pay closer attention, notice nuances, and respond more thoughtfully. They evaluate not only the content of your actions, but also their significance in the broader pattern of presence and absence. This approach requires discipline and self-awareness because it counters the instinct to fill every moment with reassurance or explanation. The practice of restraint is not avoidance. It is an exercise of self-control, of understanding that influence often grows in the space between appearances. By being deliberate in what is revealed and when, the individual cultivates a psychological gravity that commands attention naturally. Social perception is shaped as much by gaps as by action. The absence you create acts like a mirror, reflecting the assumptions, desires, and expectations of others. It invites projection, speculation, and imagination. People start attributing purpose and intention to what you have not yet revealed. They fill the silence with interpretations, often granting significance that continuous explanation would never achieve. This is why stepping away, even temporarily, can render someone more compelling than constant engagement. The observer becomes an active participant in constructing your presence, meaning, and authority. This dynamic transforms absence from a void into a potent instrument, one that magnifies impact without additional effort. Ultimately, revealing less than you possess creates a gravity that constant disclosure cannot match. People are naturally drawn to what is incomplete, uncertain, and intentionally withheld. They invest mental and emotional energy to fill gaps, elevating every subsequent interaction. The discipline to withhold, to manage timing, and to calibrate visibility is a profound exercise in self-mastery. It transforms perception, strengthens influence, and aligns with the Stoic principle that true authority is internal, derived from mastery over impulses and careful regulation of action. The unpredictability introduced by absence ensures that presence carries weight, that influence is earned through intention, and that each interaction resonates more deeply than it would under constant visibility. Predictability creates a sense of comfort, yet it quietly erodes influence. When people can anticipate your every action, your presence becomes mundane, your words lose weight, and your decisions no longer command attention. Safety, in this sense, is a subtle form of invisibility. The world grows accustomed to your patterns, and the mind ceases to notice what has become routine. The most compelling influence arises not from constant demonstration, but from careful orchestration of presence and withdrawal. Each moment of engagement carries significance precisely because it is neither automatic nor expected. The deliberate act of holding back transforms ordinary actions into noteworthy events, ensuring that when you do act, the impact is profound. Discipline and awareness are required to maintain this balance, as it runs counter to the instinct to fill every space, to justify, to prove, and to remain consistently visible. Intentionality is the key to measured presence. Stepping away from the compulsion to be constantly observed allows the mind and perception of others to reset. People begin to pay attention not only to what you do, but to the significance of what you choose not to do. There is a subtle psychological tension created in this space of deliberate absence. Observers seek to resolve uncertainty, and in doing so, invest energy into noticing, interpreting, and assigning meaning to your every appearance. The space between actions, the pauses left intentionally unfilled, carries a latent force that magnifies influence. This principle is consistent with Stoic teachings, which emphasize that control over perception and reaction is as critical as control over outward behavior. By consciously deciding when to appear, speak, or act, the individual exercises mastery over both self and social dynamics. There is also an elegance in restraint, the impulse to continuously explain, to justify every choice, or to maintain constant visibility stems from the desire for validation and reassurance. Yet overexposure diminishes authority, reduces curiosity, and weakens perception. Strategic withholding of presence, however, leverages the natural inclination of the human mind to value scarcity. Just as the rarest experiences are remembered most vividly, the moments you choose to reveal yourself carry greater weight. Influence is cultivated in these intervals of measured engagement, where each interaction is framed not by quantity, but by deliberate timing, focus, and relevance. The act of withholding is not avoidance. It is a conscious alignment of action with purpose, a practice that enhances credibility and amplifies impact. Predictability also diminishes engagement by creating expectation where there should be observation. People cease to wonder, to question, or to analyze. Each action, repeated predictably, loses its psychological weight, and the audience becomes passive rather than attentive. The strategic alternation of visibility and absence, of action and pause, keeps attention engaged, curiosity stimulated, and perception active. This rhythm, when maintained deliberately, allows influence to grow without overt effort. It aligns with Stoic understanding that control over attention, both one's own and others, is an essential aspect of mastery. By calibrating engagement intentionally, the individual ensures that each appearance or statement is registered fully, evaluated thoughtfully, and remembered distinctly, creating a psychological momentum that sustains influence over time. Intentional withholding also fosters resilience and focus. When one is not compelled to respond to every stimulus, every demand for attention, or every expectation, there emerges an opportunity to observe and act with greater clarity. Emotional and cognitive energy is conserved, and decisions are made from insight rather than reaction. This self-regulation transforms perception, not only of the individual, but also of those observing them. Observers sense the difference between impulsive visibility and measured presence, and they assign significance accordingly. Influence thus becomes an emergent property of disciplined behavior, grounded in the capacity to withhold, to pause, and to choose strategically when and how to reveal oneself. In essence, power resides in the orchestration of engagement rather than its frequency. Psychological principles reinforce the potency of absence. The mind is wired to seek patterns, to resolve uncertainty, and to assign meaning where information is incomplete. By withholding constant engagement, the individual leverages these tendencies, compelling attention without overt effort. Each reappearance, Each interaction is amplified by the interval that preceded it. The observer's perception is active, invested, and attuned. This strategic control of visibility aligns with Stoic practice, where external events are secondary to the management of perception, judgment, and intention. The exercise of selective presence fosters authority, commands focus, and cultivates respect in ways that continuous action cannot achieve. Influence in this context becomes a function of timing, rhythm, and discretion rather than visibility alone. Even in social dynamics, predictability reduces opportunity. Those who act continuously without pause become background figures, processed without active engagement. By contrast, the individual who alternates presence and absence, disclosure and restraint, generates a psychological environment in which every move is meaningful. The unpredictability is deliberate, not chaotic, and it commands attention while conserving energy. This approach transforms interaction into influence, shaping both perception and response. It demonstrates that authority and impact are not products of quantity, but of deliberate orchestration, insight, and the disciplined management of presence. The person who masters this rhythm communicates control, confidence, and strategic awareness. Ultimately, the art of measured presence underscores a profound principle. Power is often more about what you withhold than what you reveal. The discipline to resist overexposure, to maintain intentional absence, and to calibrate visibility is a form of mastery that few attain. Each pause magnifies the next action, each interval generates anticipation, and each interaction resonates with purpose. Seneca captured the essence of this practice when he noted, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it," reminding us that deliberate choices in action, engagement, and visibility amplify the significance of our time and presence. Mastery over predictability transforms presence from ordinary to extraordinary, shaping perception, influence, and enduring authority. Emotional control is the hidden architecture behind influence. Most people react instinctively, speak before thought, and reveal more than necessary, not out of malice or carelessness, but because they feel compelled to respond, to fill the silence, to prove their presence. There is a subtle anxiety in inaction, a sense that if you are not constantly contributing, you are losing ground, slipping behind, becoming irrelevant. Yet the very instinct that drives immediate response is what diminishes control. Each unconsidered word, each impulsive action chips away at composure and perception. True authority is cultivated not in the clamor of constant reaction, but in the measured, deliberate observation of what is occurring around you. In stepping back, you stop feeding the reactive cycles of others and regain the space to act with intention, transforming presence from reactive to deliberate, from chaotic to impactful. Silence and absence, when embraced intentionally, become instruments of clarity. They allow the mind to detach from the immediate pull of external stimuli and observe the world without bias or compulsion. Patterns emerge that would otherwise be obscured by distraction and impulsivity. The flow of conversation, the subtle shifts in behavior, the unspoken dynamics of groups. These nuances are revealed to those who pause, who do not rush to fill the space with noise. Observation becomes a skill cultivated through restraint. By choosing to refrain from immediate reaction, you train the mind to notice what truly matters, to discern the meaningful from the trivial, and to act from a place of understanding rather than urgency. Each decision is therefore more precise, each intervention more calculated, and each contribution carries weight beyond what would be achieved by constant exposure or reactive engagement. This discipline also shifts the emotional balance of interactions. When one resists the compulsion to speak first or act immediately, the space created exerts a quiet influence over others. People begin to reveal more than they intended, expose patterns, and demonstrate intentions, because they are responding to a mind that does not react impulsively. The observer who maintains composure and silence gains insight into motivations, desires, and dynamics that are inaccessible to those caught in reactive cycles. Control is redefined, not as domination or suppression, but as mastery over one's own responses. In this space of emotional equilibrium, every subsequent word or action resonates with authority and clarity, and influence grows naturally from restraint rather than assertion. Stepping back is also a practice in patience, one of the core virtues emphasized by the Stoics. Impulsivity is often a sign of attachment to immediate outcomes, a reliance on the approval or recognition of others. By resisting the urge to react instantly, you cultivate a steady, resilient mind, capable of weighing consequences before acting. Epictetus reminds us that no man is free who is not master of himself, and mastery of oneself begins with the regulation of response. Emotional independence allows one to navigate complex social or professional environments without succumbing to pressure, manipulation, or distraction. It transforms the individual from a participant in reactive cycles into a deliberate actor, one whose presence is both observed and respected for its consistency, foresight, and controlled intensity. The clarity that arises from stepping back also enables pattern recognition. When the mind is not scattered by constant reactivity, it begins to see recurring behaviors, hidden motivations, and subtle shifts that others overlook. This understanding transforms interactions from mere exchanges into strategic engagements. Decisions become more precise because they are informed not by instinctive reaction, but by observation, reflection, and anticipation. Influence then is derived from insight rather than volume. Each action, each word, each gesture is carefully calibrated to achieve maximum impact, and the observer senses the depth of deliberation behind them. In a world dominated by noise and impulsivity, this measured presence becomes a form of authority that is both invisible and unmistakable. Emotional control also strengthens resilience against manipulation and distraction. Those who react to every provocation, every social cue, or every expectation are subject to the pressures and whims of their environment. By contrast, the individual who cultivates patience, silence, and observation retains autonomy over decision-making. The influence exerted is subtle yet profound, as it is no longer contingent on external validation or immediate approval. Every pause becomes a moment to assess, to strategize, and to respond with precision. This recalibration of action and restraint reinforces both personal authority and the perception of competence, ensuring that influence is sustained and that responses carry meaningful weight rather than being lost in the flood of impulsive engagement. The discipline of non-reaction also fosters a deeper understanding of others. Observing without immediately participating allows patterns of behavior to become visible, intentions to be inferred, and motivations to be understood. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people, and by extension, understanding oneself through restraint provides insight into the behavior of others." Emotional control, therefore, is not only about internal equilibrium, it is about cultivating the perceptive capacity to anticipate, respond effectively, and influence the environment strategically. Each interaction becomes a reflection of self-mastery, and each observation informs more deliberate, impactful action. The contrast between impulsivity and measured response also amplifies the significance of presence. When one does not react to every stimulus, when one does not fill every silence, every engagement becomes an event in itself. People notice when attention is paid, when words are offered, and when actions occur. The impact of each intervention is magnified precisely because it is selective and considered. Influence is no longer diffused by constant exposure. It is concentrated, deliberate, and psychologically resonant. This principle transforms social dynamics, leadership, and personal interactions by demonstrating that authority is often best communicated through absence, observation, and precise action rather than continuous participation. Step back, observe, and act with intention, and you find that influence is proportional to the thoughtfulness of your presence. The space created by non-reaction allows clarity to emerge, patterns to be recognized, and interactions to be approached with strategic foresight. Silence becomes a tool, observation a skill, and measured engagement a form of authority. The person who masters this approach no longer reacts to external forces, but shapes them through the deliberate orchestration of attention and action. The quiet power of restraint transforms ordinary interaction into deliberate influence, revealing that emotional control is not just a personal asset. It is a tool for shaping perception, guiding behavior, and maximizing the impact of every choice. Ultimately, stepping back is an act of reclaiming agency. It is a conscious decision to observe before acting, to consider before speaking, and to withhold before revealing. Influence grows not from reaction, but from deliberate engagement informed by reflection and insight. Carl Jung captured this subtle truth, emphasizing the necessity of inner awareness to navigate the external world effectively. By regulating emotional responses, cultivating patience, and acting with measured intent, one transforms presence into power, observation into understanding, and restraint into authority. The impact of your actions, now filtered through clarity and insight, resonates with precision, ensuring that every engagement carries meaning, every word carries weight, and every appearance matters in ways that impulsivity could never achieve. Those who truly understand the dynamics of power are often misjudged by those around them. Silence is mistaken for indifference, absence for disengagement, and intentional restraint for weakness. Yet the truth lies deeper. They are not passive or inattentive. They are deliberate, calculating, and intentional. Every pause, every withdrawal, every moment of unspoken thought is an exercise in preserving energy, focus, and mental clarity. The world often equates constant presence with diligence or value, but in reality, continuous visibility often diminishes both perception and impact. When influence is measured by the depth of engagement rather than the frequency of action, the rare, carefully chosen moments of presence carry far more weight than unceasing activity ever could. This measured approach is a conscious strategy, one rooted in an understanding of human psychology, attention, and perception. Each appearance, each word, each action is deliberately calibrated. The one who wields influence understands that the mind attributes significance to scarcity and anticipates novelty. If every word spoken is important, then each must be chosen with care. If every appearance is consequential, then each must be timed intentionally. The discipline to withhold, to pause, and to manage presence requires self-awareness and patience. It runs counter to instinct, which drives most people to react, explain, and constantly fill silence. Yet mastery of influence demands restraint. By choosing when to act and when to remain unseen, one elevates the value of each interaction and amplifies the effect of each contribution. Presence is transformed from a mere act of visibility into a statement of purpose, authority, and insight. This discipline of strategic absence also preserves internal resources. Energy, attention, and mental clarity are finite, and constant engagement dissipates them across superficial interactions. By limiting appearances and withholding immediate reactions, the individual can direct focus toward observation, reflection, and strategic action. They monitor dynamics, discern patterns, and anticipate behaviors that would be missed in a flurry of unmeasured activity. In this way, absence is not avoidance, but investment. It allows the mind to operate with heightened acuity, to process information more deeply, and to respond with precision. Each carefully chosen moment of engagement becomes a point of leverage, a concentrated expression of influence that resonates because it is rare, deliberate, and meaningful. Those who operate with this level of intentionality often provoke misunderstanding because the habits of restraint are foreign to the majority. Most people equate visibility with effort, presence with diligence, and activity with value. They do not perceive the strategic wisdom behind absence, nor the patience required to master timing, impact, and perception, yet the results are unmistakable. The individual who engages selectively commands attention effortlessly, influences subtly but effectively, and conveys authority without overt assertion. Silence and withdrawal, when wielded intentionally, become tools that sharpen impact, guide perception, and preserve mental and emotional energy. Observers may misinterpret the behavior, but the effect is tangible. Influence grows not through noise, but through measured, intentional action. Consider the natural human response to scarcity. The mind is drawn to what is rare, to what is uncertain, and to what is deliberately withheld. When someone steps back, the observer is compelled to notice, to analyze, and to assign significance. The space created is not a void, it is a canvas on which perception and expectation are shaped. Each reappearance, each statement, each action carries amplified weight, as it is framed by anticipation and attention cultivated during absence. The one who masters this dynamic does not need to dominate or overwhelm. Influence emerges organically from the strategic orchestration of presence and withdrawal. Authority is experienced rather than asserted, understood rather than demanded. The practice of selective engagement is also deeply aligned with Stoic principles. The Stoics teach that control over external circumstances is limited, but mastery over one's own responses, focus, and attention is always possible. By choosing when to appear, speak, and act, the individual exercises control over perception, both of self and others. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and this coloring is evident in every interaction. When presence is measured, deliberate, and intentional, it conveys depth, wisdom, and composure. Absence is not a lack. It is a demonstration of control over timing, energy, and influence. The perception of authority is shaped not by how often one is seen, but by the careful curation of when, how, and why one is present. Energy management is another layer of this strategy. Constant engagement demands attention and mental effort, often with diminishing returns. By limiting appearances, the individual preserves vitality for moments that truly matter. This is not merely a tactical advantage, it is a psychological one. Others, accustomed to continuous exposure, begin to anticipate routine and lose attentiveness. By contrast, intermittent engagement creates impact, focus, and significance. Every word, gesture, and action is amplified because it emerges from intention rather than habit. The observer is drawn in, interpreting each moment through the lens of deliberate choice rather than reactionary presence. This controlled pacing amplifies influence, preserves composure, and cultivates respect naturally. The mastery of selective presence also cultivates patience and discernment. It trains the mind to delay gratification, to evaluate the significance of each contribution, and to act from insight rather than impulse. The individual learns to tolerate ambiguity and uncertainty, knowing that influence is sustained through careful calibration rather than incessant action. Observers may misinterpret the pauses as weakness or disengagement, but the strategic mind understands that the ultimate advantage lies in timing, not constant availability. Each re-engagement is thus a point of leverage, a concentrated expression of authority, and an exercise in directing attention without compulsion. The rhythm of engagement and withdrawal creates a psychological momentum that magnifies impact far beyond what continuous effort could achieve. Selective presence also shapes social perception and expectation. People begin to recognize patterns of engagement, to interpret each appearance with heightened awareness, and to attribute significance to every interaction. The deliberate contrast between silence and action generates respect, curiosity, and attentive observation. The observer becomes engaged not simply by content, but by the rhythm and intentionality of interaction. Power is reinforced not by dominance or coercion, but through subtle orchestration of timing, energy, and attention. Each carefully chosen word, gesture, and action conveys authority, demonstrating that mastery lies not in the quantity of appearances, but in the quality and strategic deployment of presence. Ultimately, those who understand the dynamics of influence recognize that absence and silence are not weaknesses, but instruments of control. Each pause, each deliberate withdrawal, and each measured engagement enhances authority, amplifies attention, and preserves mental clarity. The choice to be present selectively allows for observation, reflection, and precision, transforming ordinary interactions into moments of influence. Aristotle once noted, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit." In this context, the habit of measured presence cultivates influence, authority, and strategic insight. The moments of absence are as powerful as the moments of presence, each shaping perception, reinforcing attention, and magnifying impact. Remember, true influence isn't earned by constant noise or relentless visibility. It's cultivated in the space between, in the pauses, in the moments of deliberate presence. Every choice to step back, to reflect, and to act intentionally strengthens your clarity, your focus, and your quiet authority. Let that guide you as you move through the world with purpose, grounded in discipline and insight. Thank you for being part of Stoic Journal, for exploring these principles, and for committing to growth with intention. Click on one of the suggested videos on the screen to continue deepening your understanding, and let each step forward be guided by wisdom and deliberate action.